Today we're diving into an important topic. How do we properly assess and promote individuals within a company, especially for critical roles like a director? So, here's a situation I encountered. I promoted someone from a deputy head to a department head because of their excellent performance, but since the promotion, their performance hasn't quite met expectations. What do you think? Is this a case of picking the wrong person, or should I just allow more time for them to adjust?
That's a tough one. It's always tricky to predict how someone will perform in a higher role, even if they've excelled in their previous position. But I'd lean more towards giving them time to adjust. Transitioning to a director position is a big leap, and the skills required are quite different. However, that said, you could consider whether you've properly assessed their ability to handle the new responsibilities before making that decision.
I see what you mean. But here's the thing. I've been thinking about how promotions should actually be approached, especially when a company is growing. For instance, I believe there should be a kind of test for those moving into senior roles like a director. What do you think about having such a structured approach?
Absolutely. A test or an assessment is essential, especially for senior positions. When a company's still expanding, it might feel like promoting someone internally is a safe bet. But for a role like a director, there's more at stake. A director needs to understand and guide the company's future, not just manage daily operations. So, assessing how they think about the company's trajectory is key.
Exactly. I think questions like, where do you see the company in the next 3 years? Or, what steps would you take to foster growth? Could give us real insights. It's about gauging their long-term vision. But so often, companies end up promoting people based on seniority or votes. That's a dangerous game, don't you think?
Definitely. Promoting based on seniority or popularity can leave a company in trouble. It's important to consider not just experience, but also the ability to adapt and lead in a more strategic way. A director needs to have the foresight to manage both internal and external challenges. And let's not forget, they should be focused on shaping the company's direction for the next few years, not just the immediate future.
Right. A director's role is different from that of a manager. A manager might spend about 70% of their time working internally, but a director needs to focus around 70% of their efforts externally on growing the business, building relationships, and bringing in opportunities. They also need to make bigger strategic plans, not just the annual reports a manager would focus on.
That makes sense. The director isn't just executing the day-to-day tasks. They're supposed to see the bigger picture. They have to deal with external pressures, like clients and market changes, and steer the company through those challenges. And it's interesting that directors are given better resources, like a bigger office or a company car, because the role requires a different kind of responsibility, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's not just about perks, it's about creating the right environment for the director to be effective in their external-facing role. That's why careful selection is so important. If a director isn't equipped for the role, it could hurt the company's long-term viability.
Yeah, and the job of a director is so much more than focusing on short-term results. It's about making those long-term strategic decisions. Like you said, they need to have a 3-year plan. It's about understanding that things change every few years, both internally and externally. The director has to adapt to those changes and guide the company through them.
And this is where things get tricky. Even if we're only role-playing the director's position right now, it's not something we've fully figured out. We're still learning. Take CEOs or presidents, for example. Those roles are still evolving, especially when you consider the systems we've adopted. The role of a CEO, for instance, is something we're just beginning to fully grasp.
That's true. The presidential or CEO role is still a bit of a work in progress. We've only had a few generations to figure it out, and in some ways we're still working through contradictions in these systems. But that's where the future lies. Understanding and organizing those contradictions to build a better environment. So, it's all about research, trial, and reflection on how we can improve these roles for the future.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for companies and leaders to actively evaluate their processes so they don't just stick to tradition without question. We need to be proactive in refining leadership roles and making sure we're fostering the right kind of growth.
Absolutely. By questioning the status quo and reevaluating how we assess and promote leaders, we can shape a future that's more in tune with the real needs of the company and society as a whole.
It's an ongoing process, but it's one that's critical for future success. Thanks for this great discussion today. It really helps to reflect on these concepts in more detail.